books, a very well-known book, is The Selfish Gene. What does that mean? You call human beings selfish gene machines? Is that?
Yes, it's a way of trying to explain why individual organisms like human beings are actually not selfish. So I'm saying that selfishness resides at the level of the gene. Genes that work for their own short-term survival, genes that have effects upon the world which lead to their own short-term survival, are the genes that survive, the genes that come through the generations. The world is full of genes that look after their own selfish interest.
And the prime aspect of that is reproduction.
Yes.
And so that's what drives all organisms, including human beings, is the drive to reproduce their own genetic makeup.
That's pretty standard Darwinism.
Right.
We are, in any era, the organisms that live contain the genes of an unbroken line of successful ancestors. It has to be true. Plenty of the ancestors' competitors were not successful. They all died. But not a single one of your ancestors died young. Or not a single one of your ancestors failed to copulate, not a single one of your ancestors failed to rear at least one child.
By definition.
By definition. And so, but what's not by definition, which is genuinely interesting, is that you have therefore inherited the genes, which are a non-random sample of the genes in every generation, non-random in the direction of being good at surviving.
What is motivating great musicians, great writers, great political leaders, great scientists? I mean, what are you doing now? You're obviously passionate about what you write and what you think and what you're doing, that is absorbing your life, that does not involve, I don't think, the replication of your genetic makeup.
No, that's certainly right, and because we're humans, we tend to be rather obsessed with humans. There are 30 million other species of animal where that question wouldn't have occurred to you.
But most of our viewers are humans now.
Yeah.
How does that work out for, are humans different?
Humans, like any other species of animal, have been programmed, have evolved by genetic selection, and we have the bodies and the brains that are good for passing on our genes. That's step one. So that's where we get our brains from. That's why they're big. But once you get a big brain, then the big brain can be used for other things. In the same sort of way as computers were originally designed as calculating machines, and then without any change, without any alteration in their general structure, it turns out that they can be used as word processors as well. So there's something about human brains which makes them more versatile than they were originally intended for. Now, you talked about the fact that I'm passionate about what I do and that I work hard at writing my books and so on. The world, which is now so different from the world in which our ancestors lived, what we actually strive for, the goals we set up, are very different. The goal-seeking mechanisms in our brains were originally put there to try to achieve goals such as finding a herd of bison to hunt. And we would have set out to find a herd of bison, and we'd have used all sorts of flexible goal-seeking mechanisms, and we'd have persisted, and we'd have gone on and on and on for days and days and days trying to achieve that goal. Natural selection favored persistence in seeking goals. Nowadays, we no longer hunt bisons. Nowadays, we hunt money or a nice new house, or we try to finish a novel, or whatever it is that we do.
In this town, political victory.
Yes.
Right. Why is this so important? I mean, you obviously feel that this idea of evolution is of primary importance. I mean, this is what makes the world go round. What is it, in your view at least, the mother science?
Well, what could be more important than an understanding of why you're here, why you're the shape you are, why you have the brain that you do, why your body is the way it is, not just you, but all the other 30 million species of living thing, each of which carries with it this superb illusion of having been designed to do something supremely well. A swift flies supremely well, a mole digs supremely well, a shark or a dolphin swims supremely well, and a human thinks supremely well. What could be a more fascinating, tantalizing question than why all that has come about? And we have the answer. Since the middle of the 19th century, we have known in principle the answer to that question, and we're still working out the details.
I read that, and a long time ago I read some of Darwin. Darwin doesn't really answer the question why we are here. He answers the question of how we are here. I mean, why in when you normally say, well, why are we here, you expect a theological answer or a religious answer. Does Darwin really talk about why we are here in that sense?
Darwin, if I may say so, had better things to do than talk about why we are here in that sense. It's not a sensible sense in which to ask the question. There is no reason why, just because it's possible to ask a question, it's necessarily a sensible question to ask.
But you had mentioned, you said that Darwin, after all these years, has told us why.
I was using why in another sense. I was using why in the sense of the explanation, and that's the only sense in which I think is actually a legitimate one. I don't think the question of ultimate purpose, the question of what is the fundamental purpose for which the universe came into existence, I believe there isn't one. If you ask me what...
You believe there is not one?
Yes. On the other hand, if you ask me what is the purpose of a bird's wing, then I'm quite happy to say, well, in the special Darwinian sense, the purpose of a bird's wing is to help it to fly, therefore to survive, and therefore to reproduce the genes that gave it those wings that make it fly. Now, I'm happy with that meaning of the word why.
I see.
But the ultimate meaning of the word why, I do not regard as a legitimate question, and the mere fact that it's possible to ask the question doesn't make it legitimate. There are plenty of questions I could imagine somebody asking me, and I wouldn't attempt to answer it. I would just say, that's a silly question, don't ask it.